So obviously, taking a baby to term is going to have major effects on the mother's anatomy and physiology. So 29.9 is a fairly interesting photo, right, trying to show you kind of the normal arrangement of the organs. And then what happens during pregnancy. So look at that, it's all pushed on up there. The liver is pushing up on the diaphragm. This baby's taking up a lot of space. So there's actually quite a few changes that take place here, both from the way the organs have shifted, but even more importantly, the attempt to supply enough energy, nutrients, oxygen, etc. For this baby. So we'll see things like, so if you look at maternal effects, right, things like increased respiratory rate and increased tidal volume, right, so the depth of those breaths. You'll also see something, an increase in maternal blood volume. Right? And that's actually like a 50% increase in the amount of blood that mom needs, right? Because so much of that blood, right, is moving into the placenta. That decreases the volume of blood in the body, and we're going to see usually the kidney noticing that first, and so things like renin and APO stepping in and pushing for an increase in the volume of blood. We'll also see an increase in glomerular filtration rate. Again, it's like a 50% increase. And so this is due to the fact now we have a larger blood volume. Mom's kidney is going to have to deal with all of the fluids, all of the wastes for the baby as well. And so that glomerular filtration rate picks up. So between that and the whole uterus pushing down on the bladder there, that's some of the reasons that pregnant women need to urinate so frequently. We'll also see an increase in nutrient requirements. The old eating for two. It's not obviously, hopefully obviously not a doubling in the amount of nutrients intake, and it's something like 10 to 30% increase in those nutrients if mom does not take those in, right? So like the developing baby is going to need calcium, right? Mom has calcium in her blood, the baby will take it. If you do not increase the nutrient intake, right, things like calcium, where is it going to come from? Comes from mom's bones, right? The baby will take what the baby needs, and so you do have to support those nutrient requirements. The other thing that I wanted to point out here, right, is that we should also think about the placenta as more than just this gas exchange organ. Again, it's a little weird because this is partially made by the fetus and partially made by mom, but the placenta actually has big effects on mom because it starts to act as an endocrine organ. And this actually happens pretty early on, right? This is not just at the end of pregnancy. So for example, one of the hormones that the placenta makes is called human chorionic gonadotropin. Human chorionic, right? So the chorion, and then gonadotropin. You should recognize that as one of the hypothalamus, right? FSH, LH, those sorts of things. So human chorionic gonadotropin, this is actually what's used in a pregnancy test, right? Actually sensing for the presence of this. This is going to help maintain that corpus luteum. Because remember, if pregnancy didn't occur, it just scars over into the corpus albicans. But if pregnancy does occur, suddenly the corpus luteum stays around. Well, it's actually this hormone that supports the maintenance of the corpus luteum. And then the corpus luteum, of course, is producing progesterone, which is the hormone that's going to help us maintain pregnancy, right? So the placenta is an endocrine organ. Another hormone, we get human placental lactogen. Right? And this is going to be a hormone that helps prepare the mammary glands for producing milk. Right? So after puberty, females have the mammary glands, but they're not active. They're not producing the milk until we have this hormone. And again, it's kind of funny that the placenta, part of that, right, original zygote, some of those cells became the trophoblast, some of those cells became the placenta, and now it's driving mom to produce milk. Now, with the mammary glands, do keep in mind, really early on, the mammary glands are going to produce, colostrum. This is actually a very protein-rich form of milk, right? Higher protein, lower lipids, that's really produced just the first few days, 2 to 3 days after childbirth. A lot of these proteins are actually going to be antibodies. So they're going to help protect the baby from catching disease, right? Mom's already produced those antibodies. Then, later on, then we get a more kind of classic example of milk, right? So lots of water, proteins, sugars, lipids. It's kind of that perfect food. There's also in there the enzyme lysozyme. We talked about that back with tears, right? So again, trying to protect the baby, right? There's more hormones, right? The placenta also produces the hormone relaxin. Right? And some of the functions of relaxin are given away by the name. So one of the things it does is actually help to relax the pubic symphysis. So those bones will actually be able to pull, the pelvic bones can actually stretch a little bit to make more room for baby to come out. So kind of increase the we'll go with that, increase the flexibility of the pubic symphysis. Which, remember, you have that, it's a fibrocartilage disc where the two pubic bones are attaching. It also helps to dilate the cervix, right? And it's going to actually help delay actual childbirth until later. So it actually suppresses the release of oxytocin, which is really one of the powerful hormones that drives the actual childbirth process. It is time for parturition. Which is just the fancy name for childbirth, right? Then it's actually the pituitary gland of the fetus that starts releasing oxytocin, right? Oxytocin is going to lead to increased uterine contractions. And so as the uterus starts pushing the fetus out and the head of the fetus starts pushing on the cervix, then we start to get higher release of oxytocin from mom, right? And eventually this is going to lead to childbirth, right? So labor is the actual contractions that are taking place trying to push the baby out, and then childbirth is obviously when it's actually being delivered. So keep in mind, Mother's Day is coming up here soon. As you start to think about all the things your mom went through, if you're still lucky enough to have her around, make sure you say thank you.